I guess who would be in charge of something like that? Do we need to regulate AI development or its use?
Yeah, so it's different levels, different layers. Right?
The libertarians are freaking out right now. I mean, it's a good question, really, because you're seeing companies having to block it from being used because people are submitting corporate data to these data models, and it's a nightmare. Like, how many of you guys have restrictions or policies about ChatGPT at work? Have you already seen things happen that way?
Eddie's nodding his head, yeah.
You have restrictions in this country? I'm surprised.
Yeah, so it's
so many good jokes.
Levels, right?
Okay.
To follow the generic technology, there's a technology, right? It's infancy, and then you have your standards and development organizations, right? Which spec out, right? Spec out and put the parameters, so it can be interoperable, and such in typical use cases, right? So when you have a new technology come up, and then there's vendors who want to code it, right? And so the SDO people say, okay, this is how component A is going to talk to component B, and now you go code it. And so now those people are sort of, in a way, I don't know if we can call them responsible or not, to figure out guardrails and parameters for this new technology, right? So NIST, right? So the NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, right? The people who come up with specifications to make sure that the technology is safe and interoperable and such. So the NIST, right? The NIST 800 series,
right.
For the GRC. So they have now come up with high-level risk management framework around AI. And it has they've got guidelines around manage, map, measure, and such. But it's high level, and so there's still a gap of taking that and making it more usable. But that's again at a super high level of SDO, and then at the other end of the spectrum is whoever is using it, right? The literal user who's using it. Then if that person is an employee of a company or an organization, then I think it's at an organizational level that they need to figure things out at their level.
So everyone gets to kind of define whether it's okay for our company and it's not okay. Do you allow people at your company to use ChatGPT?
I would allow everyone free access to ChatGPT and Bard, because look, every technology has had its doubters when it was first launched, right? And if you don't allow people, then who's going to decide what the regulation should be? You're really going to trust our representatives to talk about AI and what type of regulations to put in place? There are laws in this country to prevent us already. There are existing laws to prevent us from doing bad things. I think those are sufficient, but you have to enforce those laws without any, I would say, restrictions. But if you try to regulate it, it's a dangerous game that we play. What could be done and what should not be done. For most of the people like myself who use ChatGPT and Bard as well, it's obvious what they can do and what they cannot do, and we are good at deciding how to use it. Now, there's a whole set of people who may not be as smart in how to use it, so don't use it. I've seen teachers have struggled with using Office 365 on the web. They're very good at using desktop applications. When they had to transition to the web, they struggle. And these are teachers teaching in the universities, right? So we can't dictate that just because of that. You can't just say, all the applications on the professor's desktop have to be desktop applications just because they're struggling to use it. I think, and this goes back to my fundamental question, who is the guy who can make these regulations? I don't think we have any authority whom we can trust to make the right regulations. As we go forward, we'll learn things, and for instance, people trying to impersonate senators from Washington to do certain things, or impersonating them and doing bad things. And there are laws against doing that. If you catch somebody doing that, the punishment should be severe and immediate, and it'll stop that immediately. But if you try to regulate the use of what was that thing called, the ChatGPT version for image generation, it's going to be very hard. And people already know that it's not perfect. And there's some really smart guys, artists, who can tell you whether the art was produced by AI or it was produced by a human. And so people can see the difference. But these tools, there's one example. I don't know the application that Adobe launched. I think it's Firefly or something, right? Mm-hmm. So I tried to generate an image from memory. I'd seen this painting long time ago, and I have not been able to locate it. And I'd try to give all kinds of descriptions to this application based on ChatGPT, Open AI. And it never got it right. I kept saying that the sun is on the right, so the shadow should be falling on the left, but it kept showing the shadows on the right. And I said, the person was not sitting on the camel, the person was walking by the camel, but it could never produce an image that showed the person walking by the camel. It's always put the person on top of the camel. So it never gets it right? Because
you should check out Midjourney with umbrellas. The handle goes right through their head or like through their arm, or it's built into their arm. Like it doesn't quite get it.
Yeah. So I think there are limitations, and it's the wrong thing to say, stop this until some guy can figure out what the regulation should be.